Consider leaving Florida immediately if you don't want to become the next victim.
I've had several people call me and say, my rent's just gone up $600. I can't pay it anymore. I'm going to be homeless.
There's a lot of stigma, like background investigations and, security issues. And
there are a ton of senior citizens here who had a similar situation to you, that they're homeless. Where do they go? There aren't a lot of places that seem to work very hard to help us. And Lord knows we need help. We need help.
Don't let the bright golden sunshine, the endless blue beaches, or the alluring image of a retirement paradise deceive you any longer. Florida is no longer the promised land. It is gradually becoming a nightmare, mired in an endless homelessness crisis. Thousands of seniors once flocked here, hoping to spend their final years in peace. But instead of living under a roof, they're spending the end of their lives in run-down cars, makeshift tents, squeezed by soaring housing costs, unaffordable insurance, and a social safety net that's gradually fraying. In this documentary, we will unveil the heartbreaking truths hidden behind the glamorous facade of Florida, once considered America's final paradise, and the reason why the American dream in Florida is collapsing rapidly. If you are still hoping to move to Florida to start a new chapter, watch this video before it's too late. As usual, this is not a pessimistic warning, but a perspective reflecting multiple sources to help the community understand better and prepare proactively. Are you ready to explore the dark side of Florida? Let's get started right now. Florida used to be a place where people not only came to live, but to gently and happily conclude a long journey of life. In the 1980s, Florida was the most beautiful promise for the elderly in America. People left California, Michigan, or New York, sold the homes where they had raised their children, and moved to Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, peaceful towns with an affordable cost of living. For many people, this state is the final destination and a place to enjoy old age by the sound of the waves with the comforting feeling of a familiar home. But it is that unreal beauty that makes the collapse of the retirement paradise more painful than ever. The changes in Florida have occurred in an unwanted manner. The once peaceful retirement communities are now surrounded by luxury resorts, high-rise hotels, and expensive real estate developments. The affordable houses are gradually being demolished to make way for golf courses or million-dollar apartments. This rapid development no longer leaves room for those who have dedicated their entire lives to building and preserving this land. Those who were once the backbone of America, retired workers, teachers, veterans, or postal employees, after a lifetime of hard work, only hope for a stable home and a peaceful later life. But as home prices rise by hundreds of dollars, property insurance becomes unaffordable, and subsidy programs are cut back or made complex and difficult to access. Many people have no choice but to leave the places they once called home. According to the HUD 2025 report, Florida currently has over 31,462 people without stable housing, with nearly 1 in 4 homeless adults being over the age of 55. A heartbreaking statistic, as those who once contributed to the prosperity of America now end up on street corners or under makeshift tattered shelters. The homelessness crisis in Florida is no longer a story about failures, but rather a story of a generation left behind on the very land they once placed their trust in. When the budget for shelters is cut, medical assistance programs are frozen, and resources are solely focused on promoting tourism and real estate development, those ordinary people become obstacles on the map of investment and growth. Florida remains the promised land for retirement living, but that dream paradise is gradually becoming a privilege for the few. The price for those who once quietly contribute to the beauty of that paradise is that they now have to live like shadows on the fringes of the bustling boulevards. No longer a symbol of serene old age, Florida is becoming the clearest example of a dream that has rotted from within. If even a place once considered the ultimate destination no longer has room for the elderly, then what awaits us, those who still believe in a kind future? When you think of Miami, perhaps the scenes that come to mind are sun-drenched boulevards where tourists stroll along the beach, outdoor cafes filled with the sounds of Latin music, and Art Deco buildings that seem to step out of a classic painting. But sadly, Miami is no longer the vibrant postcard in the memories of those who once saw it as the promised land. The city once dreamed of with warm sunshine and gentle beaches has now become the most prominent epicenter of the homelessness crisis in the southeastern United States. According to statistics, for every 5 homeless people in Miami-Dade County, 2 are over 60 years old. They come here to live, to dream of a peaceful old age in the twilight of their lives. But that dream quickly shattered, pushing them to the margins of society in a glamorous city that no longer has a place for the most vulnerable. Because Miami today is a vibrant paradox. A place where one can spend $500 on a seaside dinner, where luxurious fashion weeks and international investment conferences take place. But it is also here that thousands of people struggle to survive on the streets because they have no home to return to. Just in the downtown and overtown areas, nearly 9,000 people are without permanent housing. And in some areas, once bustling centers, even the police admit they only dare patrol when absolutely necessary, as the level of danger has become uncontrollable. But Miami is not the only dead zone. Orlando, once dubbed the happiest place on earth thanks to Walt Disney World. But the reality is completely opposite to the glittering images that the media often praises. Less than a 15-minute drive from the park's west gate, a vacant lot along the I-4 highway has become a shelter for nearly 200 homeless people, mostly elderly. They live in tents, in cars, in makeshift structures made of wood, tarps, and scrap materials. And the scary thing is, most of them didn't come from far away. They are long-time residents of the city. They are people who used to work in hotels, restaurants, and tourist spots, now replaced, laid off, or no longer healthy enough to continue. The issue here is no longer just a few individual neighborhoods. The crisis is creeping into every corner of Florida's urban areas. In Jacksonville, many bridges have become overnight shelters. In Tampa, the Greyhound bus station has become a long-term stop for those with nowhere else to go. In St. Petersburg, the beach, once a place of relaxation, has now become a campsite for the elderly and sick who are unable to receive assistance from the system. These are not the marginalized as people often call them. This is the true face of a society that is cracking from within. It's when the glamorous cities no longer have room for the people who once contributed to their creation. It is when the very cities that were once dream retirement destinations become places where retirees have to shield themselves from the sun with tattered tarps and keep their dinners in styrofoam boxes from the local church. No one dreams of old age like that. No one imagines having to huddle under the awning of a convenience store, avoiding a sudden Florida rainstorm, worrying whether they will survive until tomorrow morning. But that is the reality unfolding, right in the heart of the once most vibrant streets of America. Even the once prosperous city of Florida is struggling to save its elderly residents. So is there still a place in the American dream for those who believed in it until the very end of their lives? Florida used to be the promised land for those dreaming of a peaceful retirement, where the cost of living was much lower than in the northern states, where people believed that with modest savings or a decent salary, they could start anew or enjoy a leisurely life. But that dream is now shattering, suffocated under the pressure of rising prices and ever-increasing bills, skyrocketing beyond the financial means of most elderly people and the middle class.
Rents are very high, and even rents that before were affordable are no longer affordable.
Just a one-bedroom apartment in Tampa now rents for an average of over $2,200 a month, nearly 3 times what it was a decade ago. In Miami, that price even exceeds $2,700, an exorbitant cost just for a cramped and temporary shelter. Housing prices are skyrocketing, while incomes are stagnating. This forces many people to spend almost their entire income just on rent. Spending is gradually becoming a brain teaser that cannot be balanced, especially for those who rely on social assistance, no longer have the strength to work extra or the opportunity to start over. Food prices are also causing many families to struggle. According to the US Department of Agriculture, the prices of meat, eggs, vegetables, and essential products have reached their highest levels in 2 decades. A single mother working over 60 hours a week still cannot afford both rent and nutritious food for her children. Utility bills have also been rising continuously, forcing the family to choose between staying warm or having enough meals. This situation is not just an escalation of inflation. This is a real crisis, a silent storm that erodes not only wallets, but also people's faith in the American dream, in the belief that if you work hard, you will have a decent life. And if that is no longer true, does that dream still exist? Part of the reason the crisis has worsened is the investment in real estate by large investors. They buy up entire blocks of apartments and resell them at exorbitant prices. 1 apartment, 2 apartments, then an entire building, becoming a profit-making tool for a small group, while turning into a survival nightmare for the rest of the residents. While residents struggle with rising costs, the Florida government lacks rent control policies, does not limit sudden increases, and does not require investors to allocate a portion of properties for low-income individuals. This situation has led to hundreds of families, no matter how hard they work, being evicted from their rental homes because they cannot afford the rent, as their incomes do not keep pace with prices, while daily life becomes unbearably stressful. In Tampa, the organization Feeding Tampa Bay reports that 1 in 6 adults is facing food insecurity. Among them, as many as 1 in 7 seniors have to choose between paying rent, buying medication, or buying food. Local food banks, which were a lifeline during the pandemic, are now overwhelmed both financially and in terms of manpower, unable to meet the demand. The sight of long lines of people waiting outside Walmart or Costco parking lots has become a heartbreaking reality in Florida, one of the wealthiest states in the United States. All those numbers, those bills, those scenes are not just data on paper. They are vivid images of a society gradually losing its decency, when full meals are becoming a luxury, when the elderly have to count every penny to pay for electricity, when children have to wait their turn to receive a stale piece of bread. Florida today is no longer a fertile land where people can live peacefully as in the past. This is a land of forgotten people, lives clinging to meager assistance while society turns a blind eye. When a hot meal becomes a privilege, when rent and living expenses are beyond the reach of most people, what will be the next normal in our lives? Does the American dream, which is based on the belief in fairness and opportunity, still truly exist? For a long time, America has prided itself on having a sturdy safety net, a place where the elderly, the sick, and those in difficulty can cling to when they fall, regardless of economic crises or changes in government. However, in Florida, even that safety net is now torn apart, no longer strong enough to support anyone. The elderly, the group that used to be prioritized for support, now have to wait for months, even years, to receive a subsidized housing unit. Meanwhile, the waiting list keeps getting longer, while resources are being frozen or gradually cut. In major cities like Tampa, Orlando, and Miami, the Section 8 voucher program has temporarily suspended new issuances, while tens of thousands of people continue to patiently wait in line. In Fort Myers, a 68-year-old woman recounted that she applied for housing assistance in 2022, but has yet to receive a response. In the meantime, she has to temporarily live on the sofa of an acquaintance, or, in more difficult circumstances, wander and sleep on park benches. She shared, "I don't want to be a burden to anyone. I just need a place to call home." Her story is not an isolated case. The system built to protect the elderly has now become a tangled maze with complex procedures, a lack of personnel, and outdated policies. Many elderly people lack the strength to find their way out of that maze, feeling lost within the very system that promised to take care of them. Not only housing, but many community healthcare support programs are also severely lacking. The medication distribution centers, free blood pressure measurement points, and mental health support services that once provided comfort to the elderly are now closing due to budget cuts or re-evaluation. Those gaps, when they appear simultaneously, become heavy blows to those who are entering the most vulnerable stage of their lives. When the elderly no longer have the strength to find an escape, other vulnerable groups such as single mothers, people with disabilities, or former prisoners reintegrating into society are quickly pushed into a struggle for each meal, each bed, or each medical checkup. A society is not judged by the wealth of its leaders, but by how it treats its weakest members. And if even the elderly, the sick, and the quietest people are no longer prioritized, then is that system not only cracking in terms of development, but also losing the very core value of humanity? What is happening in Florida is not a coincidence, but rather the result of ineffective policies and misguided directions that have persisted for many years. Instead of building a strong social welfare system to protect the people, especially the elderly and vulnerable groups, this state has prioritized rapid economic development based on large investments and the luxury real estate market. One of the biggest weaknesses is the cuts or freezes in the budget for affordable housing and social support programs. For example, the Sadowski Fund, the main source of funding for social housing projects in Florida, has been misused or its allocation restricted for many consecutive years. This has left thousands of low-income individuals, including many elderly people, unable to access stable housing. The Section 8 housing voucher program is also facing serious difficulties. Due to complex procedures and limited resources, many applications are delayed or denied. Even in some large areas like Tampa or Orlando, this program has temporarily stopped accepting new applications, while the number of people needing assistance continues to rise. Not only that, but rent control policies in Florida are almost non-existent. This allows real estate investors to arbitrarily increase rents, making it even harder for low and middle-income individuals to access affordable housing. Additionally, community health services and mental health support for the elderly and the poor are also being cut or closed due to lack of funding. The consequence is that vulnerable people lose the necessary support, worsening the situation of poverty and homelessness. Instead of addressing the root causes, many local governments choose to clean up homeless camps before major events or festivals to protect the tourism image. But they do not build long-term solutions for the people. This is a short-term approach, lacking humanity and sustainability. All of this shows a policy system that is cracking, lacking coherence, and not prioritizing the interests of the people. If there is no substantial change, the crisis of homelessness and poverty will continue to persist and spread not only in Florida, but also in many other places. Can a system that abandons the vulnerable be sustainable? And if we don't change, what will we lose? Is it not just homes, but also humanity and community? When a dream collapses, what remains is not just the physical rubble, but the profound void in the lives of those who once believed in it. Florida today not only witnesses the increase of tent cities and people living in cars, but also the chilling silences and the noticeable decline of community. Abandoned houses because the owners can't pay for insurance, small shops closing due to loss of customers, and bridges where dozens of people have to sleep overnight have become common sights in many areas of the state. Florida, once an ideal destination for retirees, now resembles a post-crisis land where people live on the edge with dwindling hope. Some people still stay, but mostly because they have no other choice. Those who have left carry with them the greatest obsession, not the lost possessions, but the feeling of having nowhere to return to, no familiar home, no community, no stability. Florida is no longer filled with noisy debates or large protests. Instead, there is a terrifying silence, indicating that the homelessness crisis is no longer a future threat. It is already present beside us. And now, we are just stepping over the remnants it has left behind. Florida may be the starting point, but it will not be the end point. What is happening here is a warning for all of America. Because if a place once praised as a retirement paradise, with an invested social security system, a large elderly community, and what is considered an ideal climate, can still collapse so quickly, then where is safe? California used to be a symbol of prosperity, but now it has over 180,000 homeless people. In New York, thousands of middle-class families are crammed into temporary hotels funded by the city. In Texas, a reverse migration wave is quietly taking place as people leave the city to escape soaring prices and declining public services. The collapse pattern is repeating. Housing prices are out of control. Inequality is widening. Policies are patchy. And the social safety net is unable to support those who were once the pillars. What was once only seen in big cities has now infiltrated the peaceful suburbs. We are living in an America where you can work hard your whole life, but still cannot find peace in old age. An America where middle class is no longer a safe zone, but a brief stopover before falling to the bottom of society. And if we do not face this truth, do not question how the country is being run, then what is happening in Florida today could very well be the big picture of America tomorrow. Is this country ready to lose an entire generation in exchange for superficial glitz that no one truly owns? Florida was once a symbol of a beautiful ending, a place where people hoped to peacefully close their lives in the warm sun and tranquility. But now, the makeshift tents under the bridges, the people huddled in their cars, and the eyes that have lost their spark of hope are telling a different story. No one thought that just a few wrong decisions, a few misplaced privileges, could erase a dream that an entire generation had entrusted. The cost of blind development is not the numbers on the report, but the real people, the lives pushed to the margins of society in silence. And the most terrifying thing is that no one can be sure. If this system continues as it is now, the next state, the next city, and the next victim, could it be us? What do you think about the homeless hell in Florida? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. This video is made for the purpose of analysis, exploration, and provoking community thought based on public data, official sources, and true accounts. We do not represent any political organization or government agency, and we do not intend to incite, distort, or mislead. All content in the video aims to raise social awareness and open up a discussion space, not to replace legal advice or official data sources.